And time for one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. Here on the early game, couple accidents to report. One at Two Notch and Alpine, one at Percival near Clemson, and one at Coon Road near Old Toma. Today's weather, it's going to be 85 and plenty of sunshine. Same thing for tomorrow. Once we get into Thursday, it's going to be a high of 88 with a little bit more increased humidity. Currently 61 here in Columbia on the early game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on the game. Are we still healing, Jack, from Saturday? Yesterday was not a fun day.
I'm good. I'm I'm ready to move on at this point. I think we've talked a lot about this game and stuff, and it's not good for anyone to just continue to harp on what went wrong when you have to focus. You have to move forward. Focus on what's next and how do you correct it, because there were a lot of issues in that loss on Saturday. Defense wasn't great. Offense still struggled. You got to correct it and move on to what's going to be a really tough game going to Missouri.
We didn't get a chance to get into this yesterday, but where did that loss rank for all the Beamer losses? There have been some bad ones. There have been some ugly losses in the Beamer era. That's got to be up there.
Yeah, because we said we would debate this. Okay. So let's kind of weed out the really, really bad ones. Let's narrow it down. So
all right,
last week, you have the Ole Miss game last year.
That was pretty bad. You
have the one I mentioned to you the other day over text was the Georgia one from 2022. That was a pitiful game.
Yeah, but it's that's Georgia. You know what I mean? That not that you want that to happen, but that isn't unexpected for a team that would go on to win the national championship.
But that one got to a point where you had the famous bit now from the press conference afterwards, where I think it was Phil Kornblue who asked Shane, do you feel like the guys quit in that game or whatever?
Yeah.
And Shane was obviously no. What kind of question is that? I think is what he said. I'm trying to think of really other year one. They didn't really have anything too terrible. I'll say the Florida game from 2 years ago was really bad. But how about the one from right before the Tennessee game where they lost 38-6?
Yeah, that one. I think a lot of people would probably put that one up there as maybe number one. Now, again, it got eased pretty quickly because you had two of the biggest wins, certainly in the Beamer era, and some of the biggest wins in program history immediately following that. So that one kind of gets pushed off to the side a little bit. I might put the Ole Miss game last year at number one.
Me too.
Especially considering the fact that you were coming off of a bye and that's how you looked.
I can't put this past week at, because it's this is not the worst loss they've had.
It's not the worst loss. It's a bad loss.
It's a top 5 worst loss in the Beamer era. I will say that. Because it's not like you're playing a bad team. Vanderbilt's pretty good.
We think Vanderbilt's going to be a pretty successful team this year. So it's not like, again, you lost to the 2-10 Vanderbilt team from a couple years ago. That would be really, really bad. That Florida team ended up being 6-6 because that was Napier's first year, if I remember correctly. Obviously, Ole Miss went on to just miss the playoff like Carolina did a year ago. So they were a good team. I think the lack of – it's not the lack of effort, but the lack of showing up for the game against Ole Miss last year probably puts it at number one for me because it was just – you just got bludgeoned in that game.
Just so many things went wrong to where it's right from the jump, you knew, like, all right, Carolina's kind of screwed here. Like, they messed up on that first drive with the fake punt, and it all just went downhill from there. So that game was never. And then you had Dylan Stewart with the shotgun thing when you're down 27-3, and it's like, this one needs to be kicked to the curb because this is a really, really bad loss.
I've only been here for 3 years now. This is my third full football season working here. So I've been here for a lot of Reaction Mondays, and I can say the Reaction Monday we had after the Ole Miss loss last year was probably the worst one.
Totally.
Because again, it just looked like your effort was not where it needed to be, especially coming off a bye. Now again, they right after that would go toe-to-toe with Alabama and then reel off 6 straight wins after that. So things got corrected pretty quickly, and my goodness, we hope that's what's going to happen now because you're going into a Missouri team that, we'll get into the specifics of the matchup later on in the week. They're scoring 40 points a game right now. They're looking real good, and you're not.
No. There's a lot of issues right now, and again, we can only say it's early for so long. I feel like after this week, it's kind of like the whole it's early thing is kind of over because you're kind of getting towards the middle and end of September at this point, and look, you just are what you are at this point. I mean, like, your offense is kind of incapable of being, as good as last year, I think, and your defense, we'll see what happens this weekend, but they're pretty suspect right now. Missing tackles, not getting off the field. But I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that we have to consider, Vanderbilt's offense was on the field for almost 35 minutes on Saturday. So Carolina's offense did no favors to help that defense stay off the field for a little bit.
Yeah, all very true. We'll get into specifics of the offense coming up here in a bit, but what's the national reaction to South Carolina's loss to Vanderbilt? That's coming up in just a second, but first, it's time for our Sandstorm Pick Me Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Going into the year, Carolina was a 13th in the preseason AP poll, 12th, 13th, something like that. Looked at as a team that was going to be in the mix for the college ball playoff. After week number 1 and the win against Virginia Tech, you were in the top 10 in the AP poll. And when we crafted out what the playoff would look like based on those rankings, you were in at that point in time. And the past 2 weeks have gone completely sideways. You had an ugly win over SC State where it was very clear that your offense was sputtering and showing a lot of issues. And then you proceed to get beat by 24 points by Vanderbilt at home over the weekend. And it seems like everybody nationally is now out on the Gamecocks. They obviously dropped from 11 to completely out of the AP poll, which I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very unprecedented thing to happen, 2-3 weeks into the season, but I don't blame people for not wanting to rank South Carolina after what they saw this past weekend. And your bowl projections have also gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, no, they look like frauds right now. I mean, it's just as simple as that. I mean, they do not look as advertised, and this is the problem with the AP poll, and so much of it in general is like, it's based on what you did last year and preseason expectations and stuff. I mean, we didn't know for sure what the South Carolina team was going to be, and we still fully don't know what they're going to be. But the fact that they have not looked good through 3 games at all, and they were ranked top 10 at one point. I mean, that's crazy. I saw there was one AP poll by some lady out in Oregon, like a TV reporter. Her name is Brenna, I think it is, and she actually moved the Gamecocks up from 11 to 10, yet left Vanderbilt out of the top 25. So.
I think that might be the same situation as that Haley lady that covered Southern Cal last week that moved Florida up and left USF out. I think it might be she did not know, and it was a late game Saturday, and I don't know what time you have to get your polls in by Sunday, but I think she woke up not realizing that South Carolina had lost that game and said, whatever, number 10.
I mean, look, there's no excuse. You should not have a poll if that's the point. But, bowl projections now. I saw Gasparilla Bowl from McMurphy.
couple of Gasparilla Bowls, actually.
Yeah.
I believe CBS also had them in the Gasparilla Bowl.
So I think that would be against Duke, if I'm not mistaken. And then the ESPN guys had one of them didn't even have Carolina going to a bowl game, and I think the other one had them going to the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So, I mean, look, we're talking about potentially Tyler, you tell me how you feel, but like I think this is like a 6-win team probably.
If you're going to the Gasparilla Bowl, yeah, you're a 6-win team.
Yeah.
Liberty Bowl is usually around 6-7 wins. Duke's Mayo Bowl, Carolina last went when they were a 6-win team, and it shifts because of the playoff and how many SEC teams get in and all that kind of stuff. But I don't put that very high necessarily in terms of the tiers of bowls. And I have a metric, right, especially when you're playing in the SEC, that if you're playing in a bowl before Christmas, that's bad, right? Like the Gasparilla Bowl would be December 19th, the day before. I guess it'd be like a lead into the first playoff game that night. So you're playing a bowl game before even the first round of the playoffs are happening. That's not good.
No, you're playing around the same time that the non-Power 4 conferences are playing in bowl games. Like
you're playing a bowl game when most offices are having their like Christmas party that afternoon because everybody else is going to take the next week off because of the holiday.
Let me ask you something. And this might be too soon to even say something like this, but like if they do only win 6 games this year and they get to like a bowl game like the Gasparilla Bowl, is that a failure of a season?
Oh, no, without a doubt. No, the expectations this year were extremely high, and a lot of that was built around who your quarterback is, right? And look, we'll get into the offense specifically coming up here in just a moment. You don't have superstars everywhere on offense. You have a superstar on offense, that being Lenore Sellers, who last year made things look really good for an offense that was just okay outside of him. And that's not happening this year. And the fact that he could potentially get drafted in the first round this year and your last year with him is like a 6-6 season, I consider that a failure. Now, yeah, you replaced a lot on defense from a year ago, but I mean, up until Saturday, they looked okay at least. And I feel like your defense is competitive enough to give you a chance in the league, but you don't have an offense that can go out there and win you games. You have to hope that your defense holds the other team at bay long enough to where you can score your 17 points and that be good enough. But that's not going to get it done in this league, unfortunately.
And therein lies the problem right there, is the fact that you have to rely on your defense to win you a game. You have to rely on everyone else but the main factor of how you score points in football. Like, your offense is your best chance of winning games. Yet for South Carolina, it's not. It's the opposite. Like we're talking about special teams probably being the best overall area of this team. Defense, they were looking good. And I don't know how much stock I take into what happened this past weekend. If it happens again this weekend against Missouri where they just cannot get stops or anything, like, we can only blame the offensive ineptitude for so long. Like, the offense has got to figure things out, but again, the defense did not look great this weekend either.
Let's think about this. Is there any argument that Sellers is probably the most naturally talented quarterback this program's ever seen?
I would say so. I mean, yeah, probably.
So is anything less than like 8 wins acceptable?
No. Why should it be?
It shouldn't be.
That's even with 8 wins, that's an automatic step backwards from what you did last year. Like, you won 9 games on the verge of winning 10. And yeah, I mean, to go look anything below 8 wins, like, we're talking like if they go, we had this discussion before the season started of, 2 years ago they had the 5-7 season. That was a massive step back.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking to see if Beamer has consistency in his tenure. So far, there has not been. And if you have a 6-win season here, I think that, to me, like, yeah, sure, you get to a bowl game, but it's also inconsistency because you took a big step backwards from what you did last year, and you were not able to capitalize. Because what's the next step after winning 9 to 10 games? Making the college football playoff.
Yeah, it should be. And again, we talk about windows, and you don't know once Sellers is gone, and let's just assume that this is his last year here and he goes off to the NFL, you don't know what your future holds. You have hopes for guys like Air and Cutter and Landon Duckworth coming in, but there's no guarantee those guys are going to be anywhere near the stratosphere of as good as Sellers can be when he's playing at his best. And unfortunately, he's not playing his best right now, and the offense is suffering. You asked a very good question to Coach Beamer on the Sunday teleconference, which I want to get back into coming up next, because he doesn't want to compare this offense to the other ones in the SEC, but we're going to compare it to last year's to show you how big of a difference it's been from one year to the next. That's coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Felchery on your Tuesday on the Game. Tyler right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. The weather's been pretty nice here these last couple days, but you always know rain is never far away, especially as we are closing in on the end of summer and getting in to fall. And if you have an open crawl space under your home and recently experienced a storm, you might have some standing water underneath there. High humidity and condensation in your crawl space can create an environment for mold and mildew and invite pests like termites into your home as well, which you absolutely do not want. As I've told you before, about half the air that you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space, and you don't want to be breathing in nasty, moldy type of air, right? That can quite literally affect the health of you and your family. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconvicts.com. They'll send a professional to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconvicts.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists. Well, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyra and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. And given that it is Tuesday, we'll hear from Coach Beamer today at 1 o'clock during the halftime show. How many offensive questions do you think he gets asked today?
I don't know. It's a good question. What specifically do you think?
Oh, man. Let's see. 30 minutes, he's usually answering anywhere between like 15 to 18 questions.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet at least half of those questions are offensive based, right?
Yeah.
If not more.
I would say so. I mean, seems fair. There's the most problems on the offense right now, and he was asked a lot about the offense the other day, as we'll get into, but it's a hot topic right now.
Well, he was asked about the offense after the game on Saturday, as well as in the Sunday teleconference, and your question in particular is one that I think a lot of people appreciated because it was very direct when asked specifically about where the offense ranks so far this year, which as of right now is just about last in every category in the SEC. And this was how Beamer answered that question on Sunday.
I think he's done a good job. We all can be better. I think you can look at stats. We've played two Power 4 teams. We've played an SEC team defensively. I think stats even themselves out as the year goes, and our level of competition through 3 games. I mean, we've got some teams that just played their first Power 4 team of the year yesterday, so I don't put a whole lot of stock into stats after 3 games. There's no question we're not good enough right now. The body of work is not what our standard is. And we all have to be better. Me, Mike, the offensive staff, the players.
So Beamer basically saying there that, hey, not everybody in the SEC's played the same level of competition through 3 weeks, so maybe the numbers aren't exactly what they seem. Okay, fine, that's fair, because, yeah, some teams have played a couple Power 4 teams. Some teams have played nobody up to this point. So if you want to use that argument, that's fine. So I think the best way to do this is to compare this year's offensive numbers to last year's. And the numbers are pretty startling. So I'll just kind of run through these real quick. And this is for points per game. This is pure offensive points. So if you look at like CFBstats.com, it gives you average points per game. But for Carolina, that's not counting the specific points your offense is scoring. So this is just purely offensive points this year compared to last year. You're averaging 14 points a game this year, which is down from 29 a year ago. Yards per game, over a 100-yard difference, 303 this year to 407 last year. Rush yards per game, this year 110, last year 184. Pass yards per game, 193 to 223. You have an average of 4 less first downs per game. You're converting third downs at a 13% worse clip. You've scored on only 33% of your scoring has come on the first drive of the game, which, of course, were touchdowns against Virginia Tech and this past weekend against Vanderbilt. And you've only scored on 7 of 30 offensive drives so far this year. What do those numbers tell us, Jack?
It's bad. It's bad. And, you know, I love hearing how, you know, the stats, he doesn't take a lot of stock into stats and stuff through weeks, and sure, that's fair. But again, I keep referencing this. I mean, he's the same guy who brought up the fact, like, multiple times during press conferences that, you know, Carolina's rushing attack last year was 4th best in the SEC. And you know, I don't know how exactly that applies to this year because Rocket Sanders is no longer here. So, but he has a lot of confidence that the running game's going to be better. So I think it's a little hypocritical to talk about, you know, how something from last year was so good, but then, you know, you don't want to really, you want to kind of brush off the fact that, yeah, we're last in the SEC. Like, there's problems. I mean, it's a far worse product on the field on offense than what you saw last year. It's plain and simple as that.
And look, Beamer's not the type of guy that's going to throw his assistants under the bus, right? Like, Beamer's always going to stick up for those guys, and I can respect that. But it gets very hard to find a way to skirt around the serious problems when you're being asked these kind of questions, because there's no way to go with this, right? There's no element of the Shula offense that you can look at and say, well, at least this is going well, right? Like we gave credit yesterday to the offensive line because I think they did play better on Saturday night. Now, that's a long way from where they need to be because there were still some pretty glaring issues, but that was at least a step in the right direction. Faison got things going a little bit on the ground, but it's certainly not something you look at and say, okay, yeah, this thing's really about to take off, because it's not, right? And one thing, now, was Dowd Loggins the greatest offensive coordinator in the world? No, he wasn't. He was fine. Nobody was putting him up there for assistant of the year or anything like that. But one thing I can appreciate about Dowd Loggins is in his 2 years here, he looked at what was probably your best offensive player. 2 years ago, it was Xavier Legette, and he said, hey, how do we get this guy the ball more? Got him the ball, had a 1,000-yard year, went on to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. Last year, he said, man, this Sellers kid's special. How can I maximize his potential with what he's good at? And they ran him a lot. He had to use his athleticism, and guess what? The team was very successful because of it. And now we get to the Shula offense, to where they're trying to make LaNorris Seljan being a pocket passer, which isn't fitting his skill set, and you have prevented him from using his athleticism like you did a year ago, and the offense is clearly suffering because of it.
I think something that does need to probably be asked today or tomorrow, when we do talk to coordinators as well, is just the fact of, how much longer do you kind of keep trying to make him a pocket passer, like you said, until you're just like, hey, like if it's not working, like at what point do you kind of just decide, like, hey, like it's not working the way we thought? Let's go back. Let's try to revert back to what worked so well for LaNorris last year. I don't know if that is something they're even going to plan on doing. I mean, it might just be something that they're just trying to stick with what they think works right now. But at the same time, it's like, it's not. Like, this is not, like, Sellers is not the pocket passing type. Like, you got to let him use his legs. And sure, he'll throw the ball around, of course, but what worked so well last year, I don't know why it hasn't continued into this year. And honestly, you could say this started during the bowl game. Like it kind of felt like there was a difference in the offense once Mike Shula took over.
And you asked the question of, okay, can you suddenly change this? Would Mike Shula be willing to admit defeat? I think is the better question here, because by shifting what you're doing, you're saying what I was doing isn't working, which we can all see that it's not working. But in Shula's mind, does he think this is a longer-term play of, hey, I know it's not working right now, but give me a couple more weeks, and it's going to be where it needs to be? If they suddenly went out there this upcoming weekend and let Sellers run around and be the guy that he was a year ago, is Shula willing to say, hey, I was wrong, we're going to get back to doing what we were doing with Sellers a year ago, and we think this offense is going to be successful because of that, which I think it can be. Like, I don't know if he's willing to do that.
I don't know if he is either. I mean, we just don't know what that answer looks like yet. But also, I think the other thing we have to ask here is, how difficult would it be to make changes like that during the season? Like, is that something where they already have these plays in the playbook of that were meant to be kind of like last year? Or is the playbook just entirely new to where it's like it's not even resembling last year? Because then you're asking your guys to learn a lot of different stuff that some of them weren't here for last year. So I'm not sure how that process works, but it's something where I think you kind of have to put your ego and your pride aside and kind of just do what's best for the football team. And if that is LaNorris going back to what worked so well last year, forget the draft stock, forget all that outside noise and stuff. At the end of the day, you're trying to win football games. And if what you're doing on offense isn't working right now, then yeah, adjustments are needed.
Well, and there's also the mental side of it too, where you've seemingly spent this entire offseason trying to make Sellers more of a pocket type of quarterback, where now he's inclined when he drops back to not cut and run, to sit there, wait for, go through his progressions and try and stay in the pocket as much as possible. It's not always as easy as flipping a switch and saying, hey, go back to doing what you were doing a year ago, because he may have been now rewired in a sense to think about plays differently and go through things differently on plays. I don't know if he can flip that switch and be the same guy that he was last year just right off the jump.
I don't know either. Again, and we're talking about this in the middle of SEC play, so it's not necessarily a good conversation that you want to have. But look, if it's one that is going to eventually be better for this team, you may need to look at, changing up some of the play calling.
Well, Coach Beamer's got a lot of questions to answer coming up today at 1 o'clock. We didn't even get a chance to get into a lot of things that happened around the SEC over the weekend as we were focusing on the loss yesterday to Vanderbilt. We'll dive into some of the SEC stuff coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game.
This just in, AAA Heating and Air continues to dominate the Midlands with the best HVAC replacement options around. With guaranteed financing, 12 months no payments or interest, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty, they are setting the standard for new system installations. Did you also know they have great deals on repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're short on cash, AAA Heating and Air can still help you out. They offer up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check required on repairs. So all you need is a valid bank account, and that'll be it. So don't delay. Call AAA Heating and Air today. The number to call them at is 803-677-1500. Again, that's 803-677-1500. And, whether it's a replacement or repair, they've got the deal you need.
right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Beltry hanging out with you on your Tuesday here on The Game. We'll get into the other happenings of the SEC over the weekend in a moment, but do want to head back out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines as Jeff wants to weigh in on some happenings from the weekend as well as this now open Virginia Tech job. Jeff, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Good morning, guys. Great show as always.
Thank you.
I'm probably a day late on it. This would have been a better call for yesterday, but anyway, I think the game, the South Carolina's defeat the other day, it was a little eye-opening for me. Not to be hitting a freak button too soon, but I was taken aback when Norris was got hurt and got out of the game and everything. I was taken back more not at the lack of the play of the players so much, but the inability for the coaches to take a negative like that and to build from it. I've never seen so much air let out. It's been a long time since I've seen a coaching staff let the air come out of their players like they did then. No 11th ranked team should, in any shape, form, or fashion, should fall that low after one player goes out. I don't care who they are. But that's what I feel about that. I thought the coaching staff did a bad job of rallying the troops, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. And one other thing I thought was, I don't know, was kind of strange yesterday. I was listening to Beamer talk about the Virginia Tech coach getting canned, and it was interesting to me when they asked him. They said, "Would you ever be interested in that position?" His response was, I thought it was a little strange. He says, "Not really." Okay, I told my wife, I said, that's kind of like a girlfriend asking you, "Are you interested in that girl over there?" And you go, "Well, not really." I thought that was a strange response, but I'll get away with my long-windedness. I just thought that the coaching staff, though, really failed in their abilities to get the team going. Not to the point that they may have won the game, but to make a lot better presentation than they did. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Appreciate the call there, Jeff. 803-404-6100. And to go to his first point there, we talked about that yesterday, kind of the air being let out when Sellers went out. And you can understand it from a fan standpoint because, hey, there goes the best player on your team, you know, getting injured and being out for God knows how long. But we've seen plenty of instances, not just with Carolina, but other teams where, hey, this is your rallying cry. Hey, our best guy's out. We all got to pick him up. We got to go out there and do our jobs, and we got to make sure that we keep this thing on the track for however long he's out. And it didn't feel like that's what happened with South Carolina on Saturday.
No, it definitely felt like Jeff said there. I mean, it definitely felt like Carolina just lost a lot of the juice and rhythm from early on in this game. And I'll even go farther back before the injury. I'll go back to the interception on the second drive of the game. You had the touchdown to respond to Vanderbilt. You have the nice tackle on the kickoff to put Vanderbilt back. You get the stop, and then your offense goes down the field. It looks like you're about to score, and then bam, interception, wind out of your sails right there. And then Vanderbilt takes the lead later on, and then obviously the injury happened. And once that did, again, it was only a one-score game at the time, but it felt like an uphill battle to climb the rest of the way as the lead kept getting, larger and larger, and, it was just tougher for Carolina to come back. And, again, he's one player. He is one of your top players in the team, but even he hasn't been perfect this year. So this is a team sport at the end of the day, and if your success depends on what he does more than anything, I think that's a problem because, your defense needs to go out there and make stops. Your running backs need to get yards. Your offensive line needs to block. There's so many other facets to this game that probably could be better besides what Sellers was doing.
And to the point about the Virginia Tech job, I want to dive into this a little bit deeper in the next hour with Chris joining us. Look, there's no reason for Beamer to take this job. I get it. It's the tie to his legacy and his dad and all that kind of stuff. But there is nothing about where Virginia Tech is as a program right now that would make you want to leave South Carolina like that. Nobody is leaving an SEC job for the ACC. Like that just, to me, would not make any sense.
No. Why would you want to leave South Carolina for a job like that? Again, he is the one that has talked about before. You know, he wants to build his own legacy here at South Carolina, and you're not going to do that at Virginia Tech. I mean, first off, you're going to be in the shadow of your father throughout your entire career, and you're also looking at it from, you know, you're an alumni there. Like, if you do bad there, like, that changes people's perception of you and the way you are viewed, and you don't want to be that kind of guy that failed at your father's, you know, at the school that he had so much success at, and it would be Shane's alma mater. So I think he's better off at South Carolina. And again, he said himself in the documentary, the Netflix one, he said, at Virginia Tech, I'm just Frank's son.
Yep.
I want to be my own guy.
Well, and you be starting completely over there because that program is gutted, right? You're going to have a bunch of players transfer out. You're going to be starting over from nothing. I don't even know what the resource situation is, but I imagine it's probably not the best in the ACC. You've already at least built something here, and I get it. We're not feeling the greatest about it this week coming off the heels of the Vanderbilt loss, but you've got at least a foundation built here and, 4 years put in at or 5 years put in at this point to what you've already built, and you're not going to abandon that to go start over again somewhere else.
No, I'd be shocked if he took that job, but I'm sure Virginia Tech is going to call, and he will probably be like the first call if I had to guess, and I think it's going to be a swift no. I mean, I just don't see any way in which he leaves South Carolina.
From over the weekend, we had some interesting games. You may not have caught this one because you were attempting to leave Williams-Brice Stadium, but this happened in South Bend.
Fourth in the game. Reed, rush comes. Reed pumps, fires. It is caught. Nate Barkacher brings it in.
Texas A&M with a huge touchdown there in the waning seconds to pick up the victory over Notre Dame, 41-40. And all this spurned off of Tyler Buchner. Yes, remember him, the former Alabama quarterback that had transferred from Notre Dame, that now transferred back after becoming a lacrosse player. Now he's back on the football team. Mishandles the hold on Notre Dame, scoring a touchdown that should have put them up by 7. Instead, puts them up by 6. Marcel Reed and Notre Dame and Texas A&M drive down the field, score the touchdown in the waning seconds, and walk out of South Bend to win a victor.
Just crazy. I mean, when I saw Tyler Buchner on screen when I got home on Saturday, I'm like, what is this guy even doing still playing college football? I thought he was done, but he was at Alabama too for a bit. But yeah, now he's still at Notre Dame somehow playing football, and a costly mistake for sure. And now Notre Dame's 0-2 on the year, probably looking on the outside in of the college football playoff.
Notre Dame has to be perfect the rest of the way. They have to finish the season 10-2 if they want any shot of making the college football playoff. One thing they can hang their hat on, though, is that their two losses are against quality opponents, with Miami on a last-second field goal, and then losing by 1 point to A&M, which we assume both those teams are probably going to end up being pretty good. But Notre Dame's margin for error has completely gone out the window now. They cannot afford any other loss this year if they want any shot at making the playoff.
And to be fair, they've had a tough schedule to start the year, and they only play one more ranked team currently the rest of the way, which is Southern Cal in mid-October. But, I mean, right, like if they lose another game on the schedule, they're done. I mean, like they got it pretty easy the rest of the way to where I think they probably should end up winning still about 9 to 10 games. But is that going to be enough? Like you don't have any quality win opportunities really the rest of the way unless Southern Cal continues to jump up. And even then, if they won that game, that's one quality win compared to everything else you have on the schedule.
On the other side of things, can A&M avoid doing A&M things? They were getting off to a really good start. That was obviously a great win against what we think is a good Notre Dame team. And look, A&M always starts off the year right. It's just when they get into like late October, November, they fall apart like they did last year and always end up being 8-4. Can they avoid that this year is my biggest question.
Well, I mean, the schedule, I think, bodes pretty well, but there's one interesting stretch here. 3 straight road games against Arkansas, LSU, and Missouri before South Carolina. That's going to be interesting because if they can play well on the road this year, I mean, they also go to Texas at the end of the year. Things are going well right now, and obviously picking up a big road win over Notre Dame will help with that.
Well, everybody in College Station feeling pretty good. Can't exactly say the same thing about Austin, Texas, because they might have a quarterback issue on their hands. We'll dive into that coming up next. As we wrap up hour number 1, it is the Extra Point. It's Ira and Jack Beltry along with you on your Tuesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the game, wrapping up hour number 1. Hitting the things that fell through the cracks in the SEC that we didn't get a chance to get to yesterday. Would you say the expectations were sky high for Texas going into this season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so.
Like, there's a lot of people that had them penciled in as the national champion, which made a lot of sense. Came very close to being there a season ago. You had probably the most hyped quarterback we've seen in the past almost 20 years in Arch Manning. And, well, hasn't exactly gone the way people thought. You obviously lose the season opener to Ohio State. All right, fine. That's Ohio State. Nothing wrong with losing that game necessarily, but Arch Manning didn't look great. He seemingly bounced back last week against San Jose State, threw 4 touchdowns, just shy of 300 yards. Okay, fine. That's San Jose State. But Saturday they played UTEP. Won the game 27-10. Kind of a sluggish, slow win compared to where you expect that kind of game to go. Arch Manning, though, struggled mightily. 11 of 25, $114, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But at one point in this game, he missed on 10 consecutive passes to the point that the masses at Darrell Royal Stadium were booing him as he was leaving the field. Not where we expected this guy to be 3 weeks into the season.
Completed only 44% of his passes on Saturday. And again, I mean, you got one more game coming up against a group of 6 team, one of these lower level teams. And then it's playing Florida here pretty soon after that. And I don't know. I don't feel confident about him in SEC play. I think the expectations were just way too high for him to begin with. I mean, Heisman Trophy level expectations, #1 draft pick, all this stuff, without really ever seeing what he could do. I mean, look, he had a few starts when Quinn Ewers was the quarterback, but again, wasn't what we see now where it's like, yeah, he's playing against some pretty good competition like Ohio State and stuff and struggles. So I don't know. I mean, he hasn't been great so far this year, and it's just not looking like a #1 type of pick player.
Ooh, I came across a clip of the all-22 of his game from Saturday against UTEP, and some of these throws are just egregiously bad, overthrowing, underthrowing. It's like he doesn't even see the receiver at times. And, going back to the game against San Jose State, where, again, last week Sark got snippy with one of the reporters about asking, hey, he looks like he's uncomfortable and he's throwing. Like, is he injured? And Sark came to the fence saying, no, he's fine. But you can't deny that his throwing motion looks weird. Like, there's something off about this. I don't know what the issue is, but there's some kind of issue here.
There is, and I don't know if we'll ever really know what that issue is publicly. But again, you go back to that interview and you look at the grimace on his face, on Arch's face on that one throw that just looked so uncomfortable for him. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something that we just don't know that's going on, but clearly something is affecting his game, and maybe it's the mental, maybe it's just that he's not good, or maybe he's hurt. I'm not sure.
Well, and you mentioned the mental side of this because, yeah, it's been less than stellar, I'd say, through the first couple weeks of him as the full-time starter. And now as you get into SEC play, you're going to play Florida, you're going to play Oklahoma, you got Georgia coming up, you got a very scrappy Vanderbilt team that you're going to have to deal with. I almost kind of wonder how that mental side comes in now of like, hey, clearly this guy's confidence isn't where it needs to be. You've already got the fan base starting to turn on you. Like, he's probably not going to be of clear mind once SEC play starts. And if that happens, how's that going to affect him? And this could go sideways.
It could. It really could go sideways, and it's not looking good for him right now.
No, it's definitely not. Again, a lot of talent on that team, and we still think that's a team capable of being in the college ball playoff. But and look, I had him as my 3rd team all SEC quarterback, but he is far away from that as of right now. And he's kind of in line with a lot of quarterbacks that were hyped up a lot going into the year. DJ Lagway, K. Klubnik, that are just not cutting it right now.
No, you go back to what his grandfather said a few weeks ago with him being back for another year. Like, yeah, I could totally see that happening now to where it's like he may need that extra year of development before looking at going to the NFL.
Could Arch Manning end up being a quarterback that is that has more commercials in a game than snaps played if they got to the point where they decided to bench him?
That's the thing. Like, do they even get to that point where they decide to bench him? Because, again, you're talking about a guy you put so much stock into, paid a lot of money to. I mean, at what point do you kind of just say enough is enough and we got to, see who else is going to try to give us a chance to win?
I don't know. Again, you've quite literally have invested a lot in him, both financially and development-wise. And maybe it'll get better as the season goes along, but I've not seen a lot from Arch Manning so far this year that makes me go, wow, okay, now I see it. And again, you really got to step up your game when SEC play starts, or else it could be a disappointing year for Texas as well.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that you're struggling against this lower level of competition is not good, and it just makes you wonder what's SEC play going to be like once that gets going for them.
Well, with Texas not looking its sharpest, it furthers the narrative that the SEC is completely wide open. We'll dive into that. Start hour number 2 up next here on your Tuesday on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. Excited to tell you that Brew Days are back at Twin Peaks every Wednesday in September. They're celebrating with one of our most beloved things, beer. You can get over to Twin Peaks and score a 22-ounce Twin Peaks brew on draft all day for just $3.99 each and every Wednesday in the month of September. And while you're there, you may as well chow down on some delicious food as well. Burgers, wings, fries, whatever you can imagine, they have got. And of course, with another full weekend of football on tap coming up here in a couple days, get yourself down to Twin Peaks, park on one of their bar stools, and take in all the great football action with all those great TVs. And of course, one of those delicious 22-ounce, 29-degree draft beers all day long over at Twin Peaks. Welcome back in. It is the Garden Trust Hour, presented by our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating here on your Tuesday. Tyler Red, Jack Veltri, Chris Clark will be along with us here in a moment. We were kind of going over a lot of the headlines there in the SEC from over the weekend. We didn't even get to everything. I don't know if you caught any of the at least highlights of the wild game between Ole Miss and Arkansas from Saturday.
I did. I saw Austin Simmons went down with an injury, so that
Well, he didn't even start the game. It was Trinidad Chambliss that started.
Oh, gee.
Because Simmons got injured last week against Kentucky.
Yeah, so and that was a crazy game. 41-35, Ole Miss won. But I mean, what a shootout this one was. Two really good quarterback performances in this one.
Listen, hey man, Taylor Green might be the most underrated quarterback in the SEC. I'm not saying Arkansas is gonna have a great year, but that guy can make some things happen.
Dude is already up to almost 1,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean, that's a really good year so far for Taylor Green.
Alabama looked like they've kind of returned to form as they've bludgeoned their last couple of opponents after getting embarrassed by Florida State. And I feel really confident in my prediction prior to the season that nobody in the SEC is going to go undefeated. And yesterday, on our sister station, Jocks FM, Paul Feinbaum talking with the guys, Greg McElroy and Cole Kublik, weighed in on how wide open he views the SEC this year.
You'll hear this a lot, but the league is about as wide open as I've ever seen it, and that's something that I think we know, but other people don't quite accept. That you go to the Big Ten, you go to other leagues, you've got the cream of the crop. In the SEC, that's what they like to used to say about it. But Greg, I think we could objectively throw an endless number of schools into it right now because. Mississippi State has proven itself in one big game. Kentucky, to me, is one of the few schools that I would write off. I'll defer to Cole on South Carolina. I don't know what the health of Sellers is. That was a devastating loss, but you also know what they're capable of doing. And Auburn, to me, is a school that was hard to take seriously early on as a contender, but they've done extremely well to this point. The Oklahoma-Auburn game is going to separate those two. So if I had to say which school I had the biggest questions about today, it would be the one I thought was going to win the league 3 weeks ago, and that's Texas.
Guys, if I asked you to bet your life savings on any team in the SEC to win the conference this year, could you confidently do that?
I think I could. I mean, surprisingly.
Oh, here,
Get out your note.
Let me get my notepad.
Do it.
All right, Jack, give me your most confident team in the SEC that you are definitely going to bet your life savings on after 3 weeks of play.
He's backpedaling now.
Oh, man. You guys, why do I do this to myself? I would honestly say LSU. Again,
Okay.
LSU has looked pretty solid so far this year.
You think unquestionably LSU is the best team, they're going to win the conference,
Yeah, I do.
even though they've had some struggles on offense.
Yeah. I mean, they'll figure it out.
Don't tell that to Brian Kelly.
Don't tell it to BK. Don't.
Well, he'll apologize to you eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
apologize.
Hey, did you see he finally did apologize?
Well, let's okay.
I think he was forced.
I was going to say, do we think he came to that apology on his own, or do you think somebody in the administration was like, hey, BK, when your next presser on Monday, you got to apologize to that guy?
Yeah, I'm sure he did not want to. His pride's probably too big for that. But, I mean, look, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think LSU, they've handled their business so far. And, yeah, I think you could also say a team like Georgia. I think those are the two teams that would probably end up in Atlanta probably right now, but we'll see what happens. But
Real quick, here's our list of Jack's hot takes so far.
Oh, God.
Billy Napier fired after a 1-5 start.
It's going to happen.
South Florida will be in the college ball playoff.
It probably might not happen.
Gundy will be fired at season's end.
That will definitely happen.
Wes also mentioned you're going to be donating your PlayStation 5 to the station so we can have it out here for our nice little activities area.
So, I mean, he said that to me. That was the first I heard of it. So
I wrote that down. Just have it in there.
If you guys would desperately like it, I think we can arrange something.
And now LSU will be the best team. You're willing to bet your life savings on that.
Hold on. Rephrase that last one. You said best team. I said best team in the SEC.
Well, yeah, in the SEC. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm asking you for right now, bet your life savings on a team to win the conference, and you're putting it on LSU.
Yeah. Gotta go Tigers, right?
I could not bet like $5 on somebody.
Like life savings is a little crazy.
See, I got to put the stakes high because again, that shows how
it's
wide
hard
open
to-
the SEC is. Because
I
we
mean-
had ideas, and Jack and I were just talking about a moment ago. Arch Manning was getting booed by his own fans the other day after missing on 10 straight passes. Like, that's not how we thought that quarterback situation was going to look a couple weeks into the season. So what we thought was maybe the best team in the SEC, not looking like it right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about LSU, they beat a Clemson team that may end up being pretty good, but they're not great.
Not great right now.
Not right now. They beat Louisiana Tech by 16, so 2 scores basically. And they beat Florida, a Florida team that not all that great.
Played
Certainly.
well in defense.
Played well in defense. Well, so has everybody else that LSU's played.
Lagway was
Yeah.
giving away, interceptions like Oprah gave away cars back in the day.
That's right. Well, I mean, in LSU, their highest point total's 23 points. Now, Florida's defense, might be pretty good. Clemson defensively pretty good, not great. And then they beat Louisiana Tech, 23-7. So, like, LSU is a very talented team. It could be that they're just, they're 3-0, and it could be that they continue to improve throughout the season. I think we talk a lot about teams that, when they lose, having that conversation about South Carolina. They lose a game by, multiple scores. How much more can they improve throughout the course of the year? And you kind of forget, I mean, even these teams that are sitting here at 3-0, they can also improve and get better. So, I mean, it's just, you look at LSU's schedule, they go to Ole Miss in a couple weeks. They play South Carolina at home, at Vandy. They got A&M, at Bama, an Arkansas team that's kind of quietly looks like they could do some damage. They go at Oklahoma. Like, you look at that, you could see
Sure.
LSU having a bad game or two in there, or even just, another team just being a little bit better on a given Saturday. So, yeah, I mean, man, it would be there have been years past where I think you could do that. I'm betting my life savings on somebody. Typically be a Bama or a Georgia. But this year, I mean, gosh, it is very hard to predict week to week what's going to happen.
I brought this up with Scott Hamilton yesterday when we were doing the halftime show, and we were kind of tossing back and forth. When's the last time we got a couple weeks into the season and didn't really know for sure who the top dog was? And again, for so many years, you had the Saban Alabama teams that more often than not did end up winning the conference, or at least looked like the far and away best team early on in the season. And he threw out maybe 2010 because I don't think we fully understood the scope of what Auburn and Cam Newton were until a little bit later on in the season. Alabama had not become the Alabama they were going to become a couple years later. And again, nobody saw South Carolina winning the East that year, I don't think. So maybe that was kind of the last time we got a couple weeks in and still didn't really know who was going to separate themselves from the pack in the SEC.
Yeah, and I think it's also still very early to where, I mean, some teams haven't even played an SEC game yet to really get a full scope of who's legit and who's not. Like Auburn and Oklahoma play this weekend in the SEC. And
That's going to be a fun game.
that's going to be a
I'm
fun
looking
one.
forward to that.
Like the Jackson Arnold. Do we call it revenge or no? Like, I mean, I think it was more so just the mutual split of like, hey, like this is not working out.
I think both sides looked at it and said, look, you're not working out for me. I'm not working out for you. Let's go our separate ways. And it's kind of like the breakup in high school where you see each other years later and you're both doing well. And you're like, you know what? Good for you. And they're like, good for you too. Like, I feel like it's kind of one of those things.
So I think that game will kind of help us decipher, who is kind of separate themselves a little bit, like who's legit and who's not, maybe early on in the SEC schedule. But yeah, I think the few teams you could say right now look really solid are Georgia. I mean, they went on the road to Tennessee and beat a quality opponent there. And then obviously LSU has looked pretty good so far. I wouldn't say they look great, but you look at those two teams, I mean, those are probably got to be, I would imagine, the betting favorites right now to make it to Atlanta at the end of the year.
I will say Georgia's defense getting 41 points put on them is a little concerning because those things don't typically happen to Kirby Smart defenses, and I get it. Tennessee runs a different type of offense than most teams, but they got beaten up pretty good in that game on Saturday. Especially at the beginning and the end of that game. So may not be the strongest version of Georgia that we've seen in the past couple of years. I will say Gunnar Stockton looked great on Saturday and really impressed a lot of people with his clutchness at the end of that game to help them get a touchdown to send it into overtime. But still, they don't look like a finished product, perfect team. I will say Oklahoma with Mateer, especially after what we saw out of him, against Michigan a couple weeks ago and all that kind of stuff, they are certainly emerging as a team that it could be making a case for one of the better teams in the SEC based on what we've seen through the first couple of weeks.
Well, Georgia last year, SEC title.
Yep.
Made the playoff. Gave up 41 points in a loss to Bama early in the season.
Yep.
That was a crazy game.
Yep.
Gave up 31 to Mississippi State. Gave up, hard to count this, 8 overtimes.
Yeah.
But Georgia Tech gave up 42 points. Like, their defense has not been as dominant. And it's probably just the era we're in.
Sure. You don't have the depth.
Their defense has not been as dominant as we've seen as some of the teams in the past. So, while part of that was alarming, I think there were also some plays. They had two deep ball touchdowns, right? At least in that game. One of them, guys in position, Brazel comes away with it. Another one-on-one. And look, that's part of playing defense too, right? But I didn't look at that and just say, man, Georgia just doesn't have it defensively. In Tennessee, typically, they're pretty good offensively. They're going to stress you. I think that Tennessee's still a really good team, in my opinion. Kirby Smart said after the game they probably deserved to win that game.
Yep. Well, if they had a better kicker in the end of regulation, they would have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how close it is between good and bad, winning and losing. And I just think that's the case all the time. Part of me wants to say, yeah, we're going to go through this season and we're going to get halfway through and we're going to be able to identify, hey, here's the top, 5 or 6 teams. But then you play the back half of the season, you never know. So, it's just, again, week to week, like, it's so hard to predict what in the world is going to happen in these games, I think.
I think it's going to be a fun year to follow and see who does end up in Atlanta and obviously how many teams they get into the college football playoff as well. Up next, I want to take a look at this Virginia Tech job. And we'll say Beamer's not going to take this. It wouldn't make any sense. But how good is this job and how valuable is it going to be to whoever does end up taking it? I think is worth diving into as the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating rolls along on your Tuesday here on The Game.
All right, everyone, let's tell you about our friends over at Classic Roofing, Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, families that live right here in the Midlands. And they serve families and businesses like yours all around the Midlands as well. Residential roofing, commercial roofing, they can take care of any of your needs with quality craftsmanship and great customer service on your budget and on your timeline. Roof inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs, they can take care of all of it for you. And that they are going to do great work for you because they're a reliable GAF certified roofer. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide are GAF certified. So you'll be hiring a company that has proven themselves capable of high quality work every time and continuously training and learning about the newest technologies. Use their virtual design tool online on classicroofingsc.com to visualize your new roof. Get a free estimate. Check out their reviews and all of their services. classicroofingsc.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler, Chris, and Jack along with you here on your Tuesday. Coming up at 10:30, we'll hear Chris's conversation with Emma Kurland of Gamecock Women's Soccer as a part of the Garnet Trust Hour. I want to dive into this real quick while we have a minute. Of course, news of the weekend out of Virginia Tech was Brent Pry getting fired, 0-3 start. They found themselves down 28-0 to Old Dominion at halftime. You kind of knew the writing was on the wall at that point. And, of course, when you have an opening at Virginia Tech, Beamer's name is naturally going to come up, given the family connections and history and all that kind of stuff. And I think it goes without saying Beamer shouldn't take that job. It wouldn't make any sense. You know, you got something good here. You built this here. You'd be starting over from nothing at Virginia Tech, and that's just something that's not going to happen. But it begs in my mind, because I've seen some debate about this in the days since, how actually good is this job? Right? Because there was a while where this was seen as probably one of the better jobs in college football. Saw some people bringing up an old article from about 10 years ago where it said Kirby Smart interested in the Virginia Tech job, you know, about a month before he ended up taking the Georgia job. So it shows you how highly valued it was. And it is probably light years away from that kind of value now, given that it's in the ACC, given I don't think the resources are where they, you know, want to be, compared to other programs like Florida State and stuff like that. Like, I don't know how attractive this job is now.
And also you have to consider the fact that your roster is probably going to be gutted with guys leaving the transfer portal and stuff. Like, they have that 30-day window right now to go ahead and enter and still save their red shirt because it's only been 3 games so far into the season. The other thing is, you know, how much money can Virginia Tech invest in a new coach after, you know, having to do the buyout for Brent Pry and all that stuff? I feel like odds are, I mean, I don't know who they would go after. I've seen, you know, Alex Golish from USF continue to be brought up as a name that could be of interest for Virginia Tech. I think he would be an option, but I think that's kind of the route you're probably going to have to go down, where you're going to have to go after a group of 6 type of head coach that, you know, has not coached maybe as a head coach at the Power 4 level yet.
By the way, if I'm Alex Golish, I'd wait for the Florida job to open, because that's a lot more attractive to me.
Shoot, it'll be open in another month if
you don't got to wait long.
Yeah, if it's correct.
Yeah, just a few games, according to Jack. I mean,
3 more.
The crystal ball.
Yeah, like this sounds weird to say because it would not have been the case, you know, several years ago, like you said, Tyler. But, I mean, are you itching to go take the Virginia Tech job if you're the South Florida head coach? I mean, I don't think so.
I wouldn't.
Like, how much you're moving up into a Power 4 job, but a Power 4 job that's not in the Big 2 of the Big 10 or SEC. You know, what are the resources like? I remember, and this is partly the same conversation with the UCLA job. If you were to just say, would you like to be the UCLA head football coach? At first, you might go, man, sounds good. UCLA, Power 4 job. But, you know, they're in a bad place. There's very little fan support. The resources are not good. Chip Kelly left, you know, like, and there's been a lot of reporting on this. You know, you look at Virginia Tech, Whit Babcock, their AD, went to their board and basically said, I need a lot more money than we're getting right now to successfully run this thing. If you're Alex Golish or whoever out there, and you are already pretty happy where you are, and you've got some traction to where you can go get an even bigger job, you probably don't feel like you have to make that move. There's a possibility that the ACC gets further fractured. We've already seen a couple teams in Clemson and FSU act like they would really like to leave. I don't think that they even had the options that they thought they were going to have. You know, people just, oh, well, who wouldn't want Clemson and FSU?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the SEC did not. The SEC is pretty happy with where they are. The SEC seems like if they were going to pull a couple of other ACC schools, it would be like a Virginia or North Carolina, right? So those 2 schools could certainly leave at some point for one of the big 2 conferences. I mean, that's what you can kind of see down the road. So then you look at the ACC. If that happens, they're taking even more of a step back, and you're losing even more resources. So I talked to a couple people about the Virginia Tech job, just trying to ask that same question, like how valuable, how good of a job, not valuable, how good of a job is that? And the response was just kind of meh. Not just eh.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there are people like a Bob Chesney, right? Might be a good job for him, right? Because Bob Chesney's not probably jumping from where you can't completely rule it out. Bob Chesney is probably not getting the Florida job, or something like that. Not saying he's not deserving or couldn't do very well, but you know what I mean. That leap, from that level all the way up that high, it seems more unlikely. So maybe for somebody like him, it might make a lot more sense. And if he does well there, then he can go get another job sometime in the future. I don't think Virginia Tech, no disrespect, is a stepping, it is more right now, honestly, of a stepping stone type job.
Yep.
Than a job that you just are really like, that's the job I want.
Yeah.
Is there any chance you think they go down the Michael Vick route? I mean, we talk about this job not being super. I personally, I wouldn't.
That's an experiment.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take that risk.
Yeah, but this job does not seem that desirable. That's what Chris is getting at. I mean, it just seems like I don't know what you do necessarily.
By the way, I know we have like 30 seconds before we get to this break in the interview. You used experiment correctly there, Tyler. I hereby, though, say, can we please stop using experiment for every single thing that happens? The such and such experiment is, it's just overused so much. Stop. Please.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fair.
That's my hot take for the day.
That's a good one.
Overused.
We'll get into Chris's conversation with Emma Kurland of Gamecock Women's Soccer. Coming up next is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. Rolls along on your Tuesday here on the game.
All right, everyone, another one of our great partners here on the game. Michael, Nathan, their team over at Integrated Media. They can make your home smarter, but in a complete smart home system for you where you can control your lights, your television, your electronics, your thermostat, your security system, everything from the touch of a button on your smartphone, whether you're outside, whether you're at home, or whether you're completely away on vacation. You can check all of it from one spot. Smart Home Systems, integratedmediainc.com, or you can give them a call at 803-948-8327. Of course, you're rolling through the college football season, too. So if you're thinking about that man cave, that outdoor space, if you want to upgrade your speakers, upgrade your television, they can source all the equipment for you. You don't have to go to the big box stores or pour over the thousands of options online. They can tell you what's the best and install it professionally in your home or even at your business. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 948-8327. All right, welcome in, everyone. It is the Garnet Trust Hour here on The Game, presented to you, as always, by our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating. Chris Clark here, rolling along with you, and special guest Emma Curlin from Gamecock Women's Soccer. Emma, how's it going? Appreciate you taking time today to join us.
Good. Yeah, Chris, I'm doing good, and I'm excited to be on the show.
Yeah, you told me earlier you've done a little bit of radio, so you're maybe not a veteran, but you've been here before. You'll probably do way better than I do, so that's fine. So appreciate your time. We got a lot to dive into. Not going to keep you too long, of course, because I know you're pretty busy right now, but you guys are right in the midst, of course, of the season. And we're going to learn more about you, but let's just start there since you are right in the middle of the season. How are things going for the team so far? What are your thoughts? How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, no, we are right in the middle. We just started SEC play this last week, beating Bama for our first game. So That was good. We're on a high right now. We're winning a lot. We're growing on and off the field together, and I'm excited about where this team is headed. I know our coaches are excited, our captains are excited, and it's just good vibes all around. So,
yeah, for sure. So up next, by the way, just to preview that Thursday night, Ole Miss at Stone Stadium. Go check it out. If you have not been to a game, you definitely should. Always a great atmosphere. So that's the next one coming up for the ladies. But Emma, first of all, you are an upstate native, right? You're from Greenville.
yes. Yes, sir.
I'm from Anderson originally. So we've got the little upstate
Not
thing.
far, yeah.
Not far at all. First question, I mean, we got to ask, we're on a Gamecock radio station. You're playing from the Gamecocks, for the Gamecocks right now. It's time for a confession. You're up in Greenville. Obviously, it's really close to Clemson. I grew up to Clemson, very, very close to Clemson. Did you grow up rooting for the Tigers? This is a safe space. You can admit it if you did.
I am proud to say that my dad was a Gamecock, so we never rooted for the Tigers.
Okay. All right. So Gamecock for life. You did, however, have, I guess, would this be the right way to put it? You had a detour before you got here. You spent some time
I did.
at another program, so at FSU. So tell us, though, just kind of that process, because obviously out of high school, you went and played at FSU, transferred here. I mean, what was that process like of deciding, hey, I'm going to go in the transfer portal, I'm going to try to find a new home, and then eventually leading you back here to Columbia?
Yeah, so I graduated early out of high school to go a season early to soccer, which is something a little new in soccer. It's pretty popular in football, but just to get that season early, and it doesn't take any of your eligibility. So I spent my first year in college as a Knoll, and I loved it there, loved the program, loved the people, loved the team. After our first season, I kind of realized, maybe this isn't the environment that I was looking for on my end, nothing on them. And nowadays it's so easy to transfer, it's so easy to hop in the portal and try to find somewhere else. And with the good background that I had, the good support system, I was able to go into the portal and just get help from my old coaches, some mentors, and find the right place, which was here. So it's been nice. It was definitely a hard transition, but I'm happy to be home.
Well, what was it that was, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, what was it hard in terms of being a harder transition? You're from the state, you said your dad went, as a Gamecock, all that good stuff, but what was the harder parts of the transition, transferring to a new school?
You kind of start your soccer career at a school, and then you start your school career at a school. And so you're going along your major as well as finding your role in the team. And then you're put on a whole new team where they have a whole new style of play, and they want different things out of you. And you're also transferring into, on my case, a different major completely because they didn't have my old major. And so now I'm going through new classes. I have to restart, just that kind of thing.
Yeah. You've liked it, though, obviously, so far, liking everything here,
yes.
Adjusting
Love
very
it.
well. What is it that you like? Before you came on here, you were telling me that you're going to hang out with some teammates to do an FCA event. what all have you liked so far about the program?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is our team successful on the field, but we kind of just push each other off the field as well. Like for us, winning is a big thing, but it's not all about winning. We are, especially this season, we have like pushed each other, driven each other to just come together for God and like bring our team closer together for Him. And that's been our focus. And I love that it's all about winning. It's all about getting better on the field, but it's the same goals off the field as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your soccer career growing up. Obviously, you're a keeper. I should have said that right off the bat. But tell us about your kind of soccer journey. I mean, if you go check out your Gamecocks Online profile, everybody should do that. You have, a lot of accolades like before the college level. When did you start playing? How did you land on, hey, I'm going to be a keeper as opposed to playing somewhere else? Walk me through all that.
Yeah, I started soccer at a very young age, like 3 or 4 at the Y, as everyone does. And it was I was playing in the field. I was a field player, like a winger. Mm-hmm. And around the age of middle school, I was put in goal one game for a PK shootout at the end, and I was put in goal, and I remember saving like the winning PK. And after that, I was kind of like, wait, I kind of like this. Like, I kind of like being in the goal. Like, I trust myself in this goal. And ever since then, I was splitting time in the field and goal for a while. And then you can ask any goalkeeper, but goalkeeping, like, the position kind of chooses you. You don't always choose it because we're a little crazy if you ask us.
Right.
But ever since then, I loved being in net, and I just felt so comfortable being in net. And, yeah.
No, I mean, I have seen, I played Old Man Soccer League just out at SOAR in Irmo a couple years ago. And one of my buddies, Ben, who was the keeper for us, grew up like he's an actual keeper. The rest of us are just like pretending that we can play soccer kind of. He was like an actual soccer player, and the stuff he would do, like the mentality and mindset, to just go, I'm going to go dive on this ball, get kicked in the face, get dirt. Like, it's different. I'm like, wow. Like, it gave me a new respect, like, just watching him, It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't deny it.
So if you could pick out some things that you've learned just from a soccer standpoint, like with your individual growth, we all know, like, everybody who comes here plays for Shelly and Jamie Smith, Marnie, the rest of the staff. I mean, they always start with defense and like that whole system, but what have you seen and learned in terms of your own like individual growth since you've gotten here to South Carolina?
Yeah, that is a big thing. Like, just kind of reflecting on what you're learning while you're in the process is huge, because you don't want to just jump right in. For me, I would say since being here, like learning a lot about trust in our roles, trust in the roles that our coaches give to us. And then with that, like perseverance, no matter the role you're in, is huge. It's been huge for me, like learning that. And then just showing up every day continuously in that role, because we're only here for a short amount of time, and like there's no point doing your role, like halfway doing your role. There's no point in that. You're all in or you're all out, and that's something that Jamie preaches on. And I love it because we're all so committed to this. We're all so determined to be there for each other, and you can really feel like everyone's input, and you can really feel everyone's hard work. And I think it's good that we're all on that same like level, so no one's dragging anyone down or anything like that. And that's really like the big things that I've learned here.
Talking to Emma Curlin from Gamecock Women's Soccer for a couple more minutes here on the game. Emma, let's go away from the pitch for a little bit. I know you're busy, obviously, as a student athlete, but what are some things that you like to do, when you're not practicing, training, going to school, playing, like all these things? What are some of the things that you like to do for fun?
Yeah, so obviously not a lot of free time. We like to try new food places a lot when we can, and we also play a lot of Fortnite.
Oh, okay. Fortnite. I didn't know if that's still a thing. I didn't know if, I mean, I remember a few years ago with the football team, that was like a craze to the point where when they would have recruits come in, they would put Fortnite up on a massive like screen and everybody's like playing Fortnite, like that was the big recruiting attraction. So I didn't know if it was still a thing. Good to know. We hit on one of our favorite topics here on the show, food. We always ask athletes about food. I did a little checking, of course, checking your Gamecocks online bio, trying to like get prepared to talk to you a little bit. Is it true you're a big sushi fan? Is this correct?
Yes, big sushi fan.
Okay.
Number one sushi fan.
What's your ideal roll? What are we doing?
I like a roll that has, so it's shrimp tempura in the middle, and then they put like salmon and eel on top, and then it has the spicy sriracha sauce and teriyaki, and then you dip it in a little soy sauce. Perfect. And if you add crab in that, even better.
Yes, that does sound really good. Do we do wasabi or no? No wasabi?
Nah, pass on the wasabi.
Pass on the wasabi. Okay. So you like the little bit of crunch in the middle, but not necessarily like, I don't like the ones that are like the deep fried roll. It's a little too much for me. I'm not too much. I'm not down for that. All right. Well, whoever you're going to say is not a sponsor, but we'll give them a little love. What's your best spot in Columbia? Have you found one yet for sushi?
Fresh poke.
Okay.
It's poke bowls. It's not sushi, but it's poke bowls, and that is our go-to.
That's the go-to. All right. Well, good to know. All right, Emma. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We closed it out with food. That's what we typically like to do. I'm going to let you run. I know you got a lot of things going on, a lot to do, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and get to know you and learn more about you too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's been nice to meet you.
Yeah, that's Emma Curlin from Gamecock Women's Soccer. Again, go check them out Thursday night against Ole Miss. They'll be in action over at Stone Stadium, and we'll be right back on the other side with more from the Garnet Trust Tower here on The Game.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our Ed and Jack Belcher wrapping up your hour here on your Tuesday on the game. And as we like to do each and every Tuesday, it's time to get into the oddities of college football, weird things that happen over the course of another week of this beautifully bizarre sport that we love so much. I have a couple of submissions I want to start off with from the Penn State-Villanova game.
Yeah, we got a few here.
From over the weekend. Drew Aller successfully completed a 5-yard pass to himself in this game where it was basically batted at the line of scrimmage by a defensive lineman. He catches it himself and kind of scrambles up the middle for a few yards, though it does go in the book as a completed pass to himself.
Very strange. You see the guy coming off the edge. He gets a hand up in the air. Ball just gets flung around. He catches it. And then it's like he runs up the middle for a few yards. It was probably one of the crazier plays you'll see. Just the weirdness of it.
That it's often forgotten that Brett Favre was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, but he was. And I'm assuming this was in a preseason game because I don't think he ever played an actual game for the Falcons. He completed his first pass to himself because it was kind of the same situation. Got batted at the line, and he caught it and kind of scrambled for a few yards. But technically speaking, Brett Favre's first pass as a pro was to himself.
Now, continuing the oddities from the Penn State game, there's another one. Penn State's up 52-0 in the literal final seconds. And the spread on this game was, 48.5?
48.5.
Villanova might have had not just the fact that they scored and covered, but the wildest touchdown to end the game with 0 seconds left.
Yeah, Brandon Benkowski, their wide receiver, kind of does a one-handed grab at the very back of the end zone. Quite literally, there was 4 seconds left on the clock when the snap happens. And again, they're just doing this for their own good at this point. Their quarterback, as he's going out of bounds, just kind of flings it up there. What's he got to lose at that point? And it is literally one of the best catches you'll see on the entire year where he snags it with one hand. And two, if you had Penn State covering the 48.5, you probably threw your remote at the TV because you couldn't believe that happened.
If you're betting on that big of a spread for Penn State to cover, then you need to call the gambling hotline ASAP. I mean, that was just a really great play, and that would have been an all-timer if it was in like a tie game to win it. But I mean, it was just to cover the spread and not get shut out. So.
Yeah, but like when a number is that big,
it's huge. It's
huge. Like, and look, put yourself in the mind of somebody that maybe did have Penn State covering that. You're feeling great because they've done a phenomenal job the entire game of shutting them out, and then you see quite literally the final play of the game, Villanova do the most insane sequence to even get the touchdown. That's a bad beat. Yeah. That's as Scott Van Pelt likes to do at the end of his show. That's as bad of a beat as you're going to get.
Yeah, the Penn State gamblers are probably not too happy about that one.
I will never be mad about a big man touchdown, and this happened when Southern Cal was taking on Purdue over the weekend.
Brown, heavy pressure, hit as he throws, it's intercepted. Picked off by Jamal Jarrett, the big guy, rumbling his way. He's going to take it all the way for a touchdown, USC.
Jamal Jarrett, defensive lineman for Southern Cal, doesn't just score a touchdown. A 70-yard interception score for a 6'5", 360-pound defensive lineman. There are thick sixes and there are thickest sixes. I believe this qualifies as a thickest six.
Did you see on the play there, the quarterback for Purdue just got absolutely lit up by 2 defenders on that play?
Oh man, yeah, he got destroyed.
He got clocked.
He was essentially throwing as he was going to the ground.
Yeah, and the ball just perfectly was tipped up in the air for Jarrett to catch it. And I mean, I think he probably would have been brought down if it were anyone but an offensive lineman running after him.
Yeah, 55 for Purdue is the only person within about 10 yards once he gets away.
It just wasn't happening. And he got 13 coming there at the end, but far too, you see 13 running into the end zone right at the end to try to get him, but it was too late to stop the big man. What a play. And hey, Southern Cal's off to a pretty good start this year. I wouldn't have ranked them previously just because they really haven't beaten anyone substantially yet. But going on the road to Purdue, not too bad.
I will give Lincoln Riley credit. The offense is always going to be good, right? They improved on defense last year. It was marginal, but it was an improvement nonetheless. And they lost all those games last year where they had leads in the fourth quarter, right? I'm intrigued to see what they do when they really get into the meat of Big Ten play. I don't think they're going to be like a, championship playoff type contender. I do think they have the opportunity to take a significant step forward, and that's what Lincoln Riley needs to do to really get people off of his back.
Absolutely. No, he totally needs to. And then this last one here, I sent this to you when I saw it. I'm like, oh man, this is going down for the oddities.
So this was a game between Samford and Baylor over the weekend. It's funny. I watched more of this game than I thought I would because I went on the ESPN app Saturday at noon and it gave me the quad box. And this was one of the games in the quad box that I had selected because I was trying to watch Clemson, Georgia Tech, Alabama, Wisconsin, and then Oklahoma, Temple. And it just threw this game in there as like, hey, what the heck? Here's a fourth game. So I did see more of this game than I intended to see.
But the play was just so weird because it's like it's a throwback to the receiver.
Yes.
And he just it's like if there was an EFIS pitch in football, this would be what it's like.
Yeah, so it gets lobbed back to the receiver at the 20-yard line, and he just kind of stands flat-footed and just puts it up there. And obviously the defense has come in thinking this is kind of a run play, so it left the other receiver completely wide open, which is good because if there was anybody in coverage, it would have been a jump ball. He's able to catch it and just kind of fall into the end zone. But, yeah, probably the slowest, highest arcing touchdown pass you'll ever see in your life.
Quite literally a lollipop.
You talk about playing center field, like his receiver was playing center field waiting for that thing to drop.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot believe that ball was not picked off. I mean, just nobody was standing there. That's the thing. Nobody was waiting back there, and by the time someone came in to try to tackle him, it was too late.
Well, that was one of the few positive things for Samford on the afternoon when they did take on Baylor. But there's your oddities of college football. Again, we love this beautifully weird sport, and maybe not the craziest things this past weekend, but as we get into conference play starting this upcoming weekend, for most teams, I feel like we're going to be in for some wild stuff for sure.
Oh, we'll get more of it. Don't believe me. This is just scratching the surface of the oddities of the sport.
Looking forward to it. We'll dive back into South Carolina coming up next as we start the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the Game.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, Krantz, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
11 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here. Navigating away from Carolina's first loss of the season, 31-7 to Vanbrugh over the weekend, and we dove into all the negatives of what happened on Saturday. And obviously you, as we'll get into tomorrow, start looking ahead to your next game against Missouri and trying to get things back on track. One thing I noticed yesterday, and this isn't just locally here in Columbia with the reactions that we had from people on our phone lines and text lines and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like there's a larger sense, even nationally, that the expectations of this program kind of drastically changed overnight with just that one loss, with how Carolina looked in that game, and obviously the questions that everybody has about what direction this offense is going.
Well, there are so many questions, and I think there's a list of them. I mean, number one, because of just the nature of college football, the nature of fandom, I think you're going to get from week to week a lot of takes on any loss, right? We see this, and it's not just here at South Carolina. Like, I'm not doing the blame the fans thing I'm not even approaching that type of argument, right? Look at what happened at Alabama losing to Florida State. They may go on and have a great season. I don't know. It was certainly alarming.
Yeah.
A lot of the things we saw in the South Carolina Vanderbilt game were certainly alarming. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how the rest of the year is going to go. But I think, anytime there's a loss, people start talking about big picture items. Do we need coaching changes? I mean, one loss, we see this everywhere. Do we need coaching changes? What is the coach saying in the press conference? What's the demeanor on the sideline starts getting analyzed, right? That happens after just one game. And then if it's multiple games, multiple losses, it only gets louder and I think more amplified. I think the way in which South Carolina lost, couldn't generate offense, got beat by 24 points, that amplifies it, rightfully so. And I think you just start talking big picture about adjusting your expectations for this team. You wonder, how good is Vanderbilt? We tried to tell everybody that they were good, and if you don't play well, you'll lose. South Carolina did not play well at all. They lost and lost by a lot. Is Vanderbilt really good? I don't know. I mean, we're going to find out. We were talking about it last hour, Tyler. The SEC is so wide open. It's hard to tell week to week what's going to happen. To the extent you think you maybe have a team figured out, they go look even better than you thought one week, or they look a lot worse than you thought one week, and it may be flip-flopped, the week after that. So a lot to try to dive in and analyze. I think, though, the best thing to do is just to look at that one game for what it was and look at the problems, of which there were many, and then you're trying to bring it forward and say, hey, it's pretty clear what has to get fixed. And if you're South Carolina, can you fix it, and can you fix it in a hurry? Because they don't have a couple games to kind of take off and rest and try. They're going to have to improve in real time against some teams that are really, really good, starting with this weekend.
Well, and here's the thing, guys. All right, this was touchdown in the offseason. So, people can't say, hey, this is revisionist. This is being talked about right now. Yes, there were high expectations, but within the conversations about those high expectations, it was mentioned like, hey, the difference in being 6-6 fighting for a bowl game and being 9-3 fighting for the playoff, not only comes down to, a handful of games, but comes down to a handful of plays, really, honestly, frankly. And, Beamer, again, nobody wants to hear it. Beamer even talked about, hey, the difference between the 5-7 year and the 9-3 year is, you make a few more plays, you have a few more playmakers, essentially, paraphrasing here. Well, I think you have the typical overblown reaction to a loss that is going on right now. That, okay, you had that when South Carolina was 3-3 last year. You had that the year prior, and it ended up being where, yeah, they were not good enough in the end, but even that team went on a run, played better down the stretch, shored up the defense a little bit, and corrected things. Everybody was done after probably, in my opinion, the worst loss of the Beamer era was that just thrashing at Florida. And then you come back and have a game against Tennessee that Tennessee fans are still complaining about on social media. And then you get a win at Clemson. So I always try to look at the big picture. I always try to look at, hey, one game does not a season make. However, I will say this, the people that have gone super negative, there is a chance that this time they could end up being right, not so much because of South Carolina not being able to improve, which is what they've done every single year under Beamer. I suspect it'll be the same. The scary part for South Carolina at this point, and the reason why you see the expectations flip, is that those who really follow this conference closely saw before the season the difference between the second or third team in this league, and in this year, maybe the difference between the best team in this league and the 14th, 15th, 16th team in this league is a closer margin than it ever has been. Look at the list of SEC teams right now and find me a truly bad football team. I mean, I think on paper, Kentucky is probably the worst team in the league, but you can go from being in the top 4 conversation, top 5 conversation. That was not a South Carolina local created thing. A lot of people had South Carolina top 25. A lot of people told you, hey, if things come together, they can compete for the playoff. If they don't, they're probably going to be fighting in that middle of the SEC pack, which is actually in today's world means you're still a pretty good football team. Guys, nobody even talks about Arkansas. They have a pretty good football team, man, and a dynamic quarterback. Ole Miss is putting up points with their backup this past week at quarterback. So just seriously, go down the list of SEC teams. Find me a just truly awful football team. There is not one. The scary part of this thing for South Carolina and why the Vanderbilt game was so big is we know that Missouri is typically just a tough schematic matchup for South Carolina, it seems like. That's been the case. Look at the rest of the schedule. These aren't just top 25 teams. LSU is number 3. This Oklahoma team that most people told us all offseason, hey, guys, they're going to take a big step. They're our sleeper. Those guys might have been right. Oklahoma is sitting here at number 11. Alabama, yeah, they come here, but they're still Alabama. They're sitting there at 14. Ole Miss, you go to there, they're sitting there at 13. And Texas A&M is coming off a massive gut check win over Notre Dame. Always a tough place to play. They are at number 10. So, yes, we knew this schedule was going to be tough regardless, right? But you also thought, hey, maybe one or two of these teams, if South Carolina is stepping forward, one or two of these teams is kind of easing back, you're facing a top 30 SEC team in the country, not a top 13 SEC team in the country. All of those opponents I just rattled off are top 14 in the country, with at Missouri on paper, other than Kentucky, being the easiest one. Guess what? They're now number 23 and have broken in a new quarterback who seems to fit this scheme. And again, let me remind you, they always give South Carolina fits, never fails. The other Columbia is not a tough atmosphere compared to many. I know, Tyler, I'm getting long-winded here, but I had a lot I had to get out. That's always – Carolina could be undefeated, number 1 team in the country, and Gamecock fans who really follow this stuff would be saying, I am nervous about going to Missouri. That is why going ahead and adding a loss on the SEC slate and it being to Vanderbilt is scary.
Well, it kind of puts you behind schedule from where we hoped they were going to be. And we talked about this the entire offseason. We broke the schedule down 6 ways from Sunday. And, we are going off of what we knew about teams from last year with the, possibility that, hey, certain teams get a lot better like Oklahoma and stuff like that. But we didn't know until we actually saw them play. But, through the first couple weeks of the season, Vanderbilt ended up being better than I think some people thought they were going to be. Obviously, I've lost to them now. Missouri is way better than I think we thought they were going to be, breaking in Bo Prabula at quarterback that we didn't know enough about going into the year. And, yeah, Kentucky, like Wes said, probably looks like the worst team in the SEC, and they just gave Ole Miss all they could handle 2 weeks ago. So they're certainly capable of a team that can give you trouble, as they have in the past. And we, again, kind of looked at these first 5 games, said, okay, your toughest part of the schedule is the last 7, where you play all those ranked teams, and including Coastal Carolina, sandwiched in there at the very end as well. you can't be any worse than like 4-1 coming away from that. And we kind of circled Como as one of those possible spots where you could go in and lose in those first 5 games. Well, now you've already lost 1 game. Now you're still going to Como against a better Missouri team than we thought they were going to be. Your mulligan's out the window at this point in time. If you come away from the first 5 games at 3-2, you're having to ask to be almost perfect down the stretch if you want to salvage this season for being anywhere close to what it was a year ago. And that's almost an impossible task in how wide open the SEC is this year. So, again, you've already gotten yourself a little bit behind the 8 ball, which kind of goes back to the narrative of people being as down as they are after just 1 loss to start the season.
Yeah, and I don't think I totally agree with you. I don't think South Carolina lost again. You know, we've said this so many times. In years past, the Vandy game is show up and you should be able to win, right? Carolina had the longest win streak against Vandy in the SEC.
Yep.
I think people forget that. Like, they've had like this other teams have actually lost to Vandy and still done fine.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you should be okay with it. It contextualizes it, that it doesn't mean you have to shut your football program down because you lost to Vandy. And frankly, guys, I think a Vandy team that, like, I know we all thought they were capable and frankly maybe pretty good. They might be better than we thought even, but that just goes back to Wes's point that pick out a team that you're circling in the SEC of, like, if we got to play some games, I'm fired up because I know we can go win this one. I mean, who would you do that with? Not Kentucky still, not Mississippi State. Like, there is not anybody that you just look. Now, Vanderbilt, even given the fact that they might be even better than we thought, we'll see, is still, to your point, Tyler, one of the more winnable games probably on the schedule, all things considered.
Sure.
You're at home. Are they a top 10 team? Probably not. We'll see. Heck, maybe they are by the end of the year. I don't know. Nobody knows anything. That's like the theme of this season. If you say that you can have takes, this is the best team, this is the 5th best team, who knows? Like, it's so hard to tell this year. I just think it's hard to look at it and say South Carolina had a bad game and it was an outlier. People are having a hard time with that because the offense struggled, even though they won the first 2 games, which is better than the alternative. The offense still struggled in those games. They struggled in game 3, especially after Sellers went out, obviously. Scored 1 touchdown, not good enough. And people are looking at it going, okay, if this is the easier part of the schedule and the offense struggled, how are we going to go play that back half of the schedule that you were just talking about, Tyler, and expect to get better? But that is the challenge in front of them. That is what they have to do. There's no option otherwise to be able to go and have the type of season that you want to have.
Yep. We'll get into the offense a little bit more on the other side. Dive into some position groups and what we're kind of figuring out about who's going to be doing what as the season does roll along. That's coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris on your Tuesday here on the game. Reminder, the Lower Lisa Special Teams Contest is back. If the Gamecocks can score yet another special teams touchdown this year, you could win $200 currently now in the pot as we head into the Missouri game this upcoming weekend. Go online to 1075thegame.com. Register if you've not already for the Lower Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest. Again, the story of this past weekend was the inefficiencies on offense that I'm sure Beamer will be asked plenty about coming up in his presser today at 1 o'clock, which you can also listen to right here on the game. We did figure out one thing, though, and I think that it's Rasul Faison is definitely your RB1 as he took 15 carries on Saturday night, which was the most that he's had in a single game so far this year. In fact, it's more than he had in the prior two games combined between Virginia Tech and South Carolina State. He was able to get some good runs off. Again, his versatility in being able to make those cuts and make guys miss, at and behind the line of scrimmage certainly helped him out there as he got 15 carries for 74 yards. And I think, as we kind of expected at some point, he is kind of now your RB1, in the backfield for South Carolina.
Well, I kind of wondered. You remember coming into the season, there was this long delay. We didn't know if Rasul was going to be cleared. Ultimately, he was, and it was in advance of the first game. But and credit to West for pointing out, like, hey, Oscar Attaway's still got a great shot to start. I felt like there was a feel, though, within the program that at some point, these guys are probably going to be the top two. Which order? That's kind of a question. Thought that Oscar might trot out there as the first guy against Virginia Tech, which he did. But we saw game 3, Rasul's out there first. And I think, to your point, Tyler, we saw him carry the ball more than we have. There were not a lot of, positives in that game offensively. But coming out of that game, I felt like he was one of those bright spots. He looked good in space. I think you look at the vision, you look at the patience, look at his ability to get extra yardage and break tackles. He showed all that, and I think showed, frankly, why a lot of us were so excited about him, why the staff, I think, was excited about him once he hit the portal and got here to South Carolina. He's kind of showing that RB1 capability. So does that, I expect we see more of that. Does it help South Carolina going forward that he's kind of established himself? It was one game, but I think it's been building to this. And I think he showed that, hey, when he gets carries, he can make some things happen for you. Obviously, there's so many different things going on offensively right now that they have to correct. The run game's one of them. But he showed that if you can get him in space, if you can get him a little crease, he can make some things happen for you.
Yeah, he looked as comfortable as he has all year long. It was right off the bat, too, an 11-yard gain, his first carry of the game. And, I think guys just kind of showed you many of the things we saw from him on film, at a little bit lesser level. Most of it did seem to translate to the SEC level, at least against Vanderbilt, in terms of just that patience he shows, letting a play develop in front of him, then bouncing it outside. Very smooth runner, has kind of a very unique, just I don't even say running style as a running back, but just running style as a human. Like his gait is kind of interesting looking, I feel like, very unique. And, even at times kind of got you the dirty yards, like in terms of putting his shoulder down, running behind his pads, and picking up a short yardage or two. To me, that was one of that along with the way Sellers threw the ball early on before the pick were, and even after the pick, I guess there was a throw or two in there, but those are maybe the biggest bright spots for me on offense. I thought Jordan Dingle had a pretty good day. This is the most we've seen him be involved. And we are seeing these rotations evolve on offense. You saw not only Faison, get the start, but we saw, again, Dingle's in there early on. Now, some of that is probably, yes, Brady Hunt played, but Brady Hunt also did not start right off the bat. Some of that's probably from missed practice time as he was coming back from that injury. We saw, once again, Donovan Murph get the start at wide receiver, second straight week. This time, even though he would not have been credited with his first career start, I think because the personnel was two tight ends on the first play of the game, we saw Brian Rowe as the starter in the slot. So that meant that Nick Harbor, Donovan Murph, and Brian Rowe were your top 3 receivers in this game. We saw Vandrevius Jacobs rotate in behind those 3. Guys, it was pretty late in the game before we saw Mazeo Bennett and Jared Brown playing much in this contest, which I think is certainly, especially with Mazeo, that's a little bit of a change. That is essentially Brian Rowe starting in that slot position, in place of Mazeo. So those rotations continue to evolve. I'm sure they will continue to have competition there, as they kind of try to find which of these wide receivers can make some plays for you. How much of the lack of playmaking in the passing game has been, just those guys have not been open? How much of it has just been lack of opportunities? You gotta stay on the field. You gotta throw them the football. You gotta give them chances to go make plays. You have some guys who can do that. You just gotta continue to find ways to get them involved. I think I go back to Chris's guy, Donovan Murph. This guy is what you call a ball winner. When the ball is in the air, one-on-one situations, he will go get it. I still maintain there is talent in this receiver room, but as a whole, they're going to have to find more ways to get them involved and just kind of let it build from there and make teams start to respect that aspect of your offense a little bit more.
Well, you've not had anybody that's really broken out in the receiver room so far. And again, there's a lot of issues with this offense that we talked about yesterday and we'll continue to talk about when we see otherwise. And you see the abilities of Nick Harbor obviously coming along, where he's kind of coming to his own, falling into a groove a little bit at wide receiver, but you wouldn't say he's broken out necessarily yet. He's had some good plays and had the better plays of the wide receiver room so far, I think most people would say, but it's still not, hey, he's established himself as the definitive guy in that room and everybody else is secondary. So again, still as wide open as it has been, like we kind of expected going into the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. As you were talking there, Wes, you kind of go, all right, you've got Sellers at quarterback. You've got a receiver room that while it did, look, this receiver room didn't come in and have the reputation of, say, I don't know, it seems like every year Ohio State has like one of the best receiver rooms in the country, right? Wasn't like that. Nobody's saying that. But you have more competitive depth there. You've already seen Murph supplant some other guys as a starter. We know that Harbor is better. Like, we heard Harbor was better, and I think we've seen enough to say that he's a better receiver this year than he was. You still got those other guys that have been playing for you. You have other freshmen. At tight end, you have 4 guys that have played. I think Dingle, to your point, Wes, like, he was outlined by Beamer as one of the guys that did play well the other night. I think the eye test, what we saw, confirms that too. You've got 4 guys there that can play for you, that do play for you and have played well. You've got Faison. You've got some backs. You have, more experience than you had, more depth on paper on the offensive line. So that's another reason, again, why we're sitting here going, well, what is the problem? And once again, I'm going to say it's just been a lot of different things. And so if you're saying, why aren't they doing a better job calling plays to get guys more involved or take some of the pressure off the offensive front to block guys? Okay, that's true. Why aren't you, doing a better job with coaching to not shoot yourself in the foot so often? Yep, get that. Well, why does Lenore Sellers at times look like he hasn't played his best ball quite yet in terms of some of his decision-making, some of his throws? Yes, that too, right? It is. You can go up and down the list, and it's all the things, and ultimately it is going to be Mike Shula's responsibility, Shane Beamer's responsibility to get it fixed. But I think going through, and the fact that we're not saying, man, they just don't really have many guys at this spot or this spot, that shows you that there is more in this offense to unlock. And again, not much good the other night offensively, but the first couple drives, there was some good there.
Yep.
And then it ended. You threw a pick. You reverted to some of the things that you can't revert to with a bad snap and giving up a sack, then having to punt the ball. And then next drive, Sellers is out, right? So I still think that there's more. You don't look at this offense and say they just don't have it. I think it's in there. Can they unlock it? And can they do it against, again, as we've been saying, a really, really good schedule?
We'll check how we did on buy or sell coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Tuesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes hanging out with you here on your Tuesday. Chris had to bounce to go to a speaking engagement, so we'll get him back in here for the full show coming up tomorrow, as we'll have probably plenty to talk about in reference to what Coach Beamer says in his presser today coming up at 1 o'clock, which, of course, you can listen to right here on the game during the halftime show. As we do on Tuesdays, we like to look back on how exactly we did with buy or sell. And unfortunately, like the team on the field, things did not go as well as we would have hoped when it came to our buy or sells for week number 3.
Tyler, kind of had a feeling you might say that, man.
Yeah.
Are you, when you're watching the games, are you thinking about the buys and sells or not really?
I am now, considering the fact that we're keeping score and these things now matter maybe more than it did in year prior. So I'm hoping for things, but unfortunately did not quite go the way we wanted to.
Yeah, I don't remember what all of them were from this past week. I do know that the special teams ones are the ones that, like, when Vicari returned that one 2 games ago, yep. I instantly was like, well, I did not get that buy or sell correct. So just go ahead, man. Hit us with it. How bad was it?
Well, starting off with Swain, because that was the first question I asked, was could he do it 3 weeks in a row? And by the way, I've never heard a punt returner get a cheer the second he fields a ball quite like Swain did on Saturday for that first punt return before he even did anything with it. And he was able to scamper and get a couple yards, but just the fact that there's this anticipation now of him fielding a punt, like, oh my God, he's going to do something crazy, and didn't end up happening, on that play necessarily. But like now, as Beamer alluded to the other day, like your punt returns are appointment television. Nobody's getting up to go to the bathroom or get a snack when you're fielding punts because they know you can do something at any time.
Yeah, there was anticipation, and there was actually a little bit of room on that one, man. Like, Vandy did a good job of getting down and covering it, but he, they decided to kick to him. He made the mistake of actually having a really good punt. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's such thing as punting it too far, as we've seen, and, Swain will make that first guy miss, and then he'll be patient. They've obviously, as we've talked about over and over, blocked it up very well this year. Vandy did a good job on that, but it did feel like there was maybe room for it to possibly happen there again for at least a split second.
So you and Chris sold on that. I bought it, so you each got a point on that one. Question number 2 was you had Nick Harbor and Vendrevius Jacobs be the leading receivers yardage-wise through the first 2 games. The question was, would there be a third different receiver leading the team in yardage on Saturday? We actually all bought this one, and once again, it ended up being Nick Harbor leading the way, where he had, let's see here, that was 66 yards on 4 catches on Saturday.
I did not think that Nick had a good game against SC State. Not that he had a ton of opportunities, but he did have a couple of opportunities. Didn't really make great plays on the ball, I felt like. I thought he had a really good day on Saturday, honestly. Like, that was good to see. I know we didn't necessarily mention him in our bright spots in the previous segment, Tyler, but I would put him as a bright spot as well. He also had, the controversial play where we all saw it happen, but in the history of football, that play never happened. Like, it didn't exist. So, would he have taken it for a long game? Would he have taken it for a touchdown? We will never know. What we do know is it would have been a nice explosive catch.
Sure.
That would have added one more tally to his catch total and would have added, how far down the field? That was a dig route, 17, 18? Like,
yeah.
It was a nice gain, we'll put it like that, and maybe more.
Yeah, no doubt. So we all bought on that one, didn't get that one right. Third question was only once in Diego Pavia's career had he had 3 straight games of over 65% completions. He was on that streak heading into this game on Saturday, and the question was, could South Carolina end that streak? We all bought on that. Unfortunately, he had 72% completion on Saturday, as again, outside of the one bad throw that got picked off by Justin Okoronkwo, pretty solid night through the air for Diego Pavia.
Pretty solid pronunciation there for you too, Tyler.
I'm getting better.
Dude, as good as he was, how bad was that interception?
That was pretty bad. I mean, it very much is in line with his bad pick against Virginia Tech the week before. We just kind of flung it up there. I think that was on their first drive of the game. Like, he's not against having some bad throws. They're fewer and farther between, but when he does have a bad throw, it's typically getting picked off.
But how about down, distance, game, score?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's going to make some plays like that. The only way South Carolina's getting back into that game is if you throw a pick right there. Like, you're in field goal range, it's 3rd and long. You have controlled the flow of the game the entire way. I mean, yeah, they earned their celebration, all that. They played well enough to win. But, man, if South Carolina – what if South Carolina houses that one and pick six it and reignites Williams-Brice Stadium? Maybe we see a much different finish once it's a one-score game again. That was just – I don't know. I know you take that
sure
with the you take the good with the bad with the good with him. I'll say this, man, for a defensive-minded head coach, which Clark Lee is, that guy has learned to live with the bad. Did you see the reaction from him?
Yeah, I did.
There wasn't one.
Yeah, he's like, it's Diego, man. It's going to happen every now and then.
I mean, credit to him, man.
Yeah.
Most defensive-minded coaches would be losing their mind over there, no matter how good of a quarterback he is.
I was going to say that is a throw because Brian Thomas Jr. kind of flushed him out, and he kind of had to make that throw across his body. That's a throw only a really confident quarterback's going to make, and Diego Pavia is a confident quarterback, and it obviously didn't go the way they thought it was going to go, but you throw that with the intention of, okay, I'm going to make a Patrick Mahomes-esque type of play happen here, and it obviously didn't end up happening. And unfortunately, Carolina wasn't able to do anything with that. The following drive is when you had the failed 4th down to Dingle that was kind of the throw at his feet when Doty got hit while he was throwing. So they couldn't cash in on that, unfortunately. But could have been a pivotal moment in the game, no doubt.
Yeah, you got to know down distance game situation on that, man. I understand he can make plays for you. That's the final step for him, I feel like, as Vanderbilt goes along. I don't think you want to take away that playmaking ability, but you do just have to know, hey, if we kick a field goal here, is South Carolina scoring 17 points the way Vandy possesses the ball, the way the offense had looked to that point with a backup quarterback? No.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the final step for him as a player is knowing when to. Every now and then you can turn the playmaking ability off when you need to.
We did have one question that we did get all right. That was Vandy had only allowed 4 tackles for losses on the season going into this game. South Carolina will be able to at least double that numbers and get 4 or more in the game themselves. And they actually did that. Carolina did have 5 tackles for loss on that game, including the 1 sack, which was credited to Nick Barrett. So that is one thing that we did at least all buy that we got right on Saturday.
Yeah, they needed a couple more of those, right?
A few more.
Pavia escaped on you a couple times, which I know you kind of expect that, but a couple of those 3rd and longs, they really needed to just get him on the ground. Unfortunately, not only did he complete some balls, but you had 15 tacked on with a couple of those ticky-tack, roughing the passer calls as well. So, there were some good moments from the defense, frankly, but also they just did not take advantage enough of the good moments where they were in 3rd long and potentially able to get off the field.
And last question, you got this one right. The winning team will win the time of possession battle. Unfortunately, that did go to Vanderbilt, who possessed the ball for 35 minutes and 43 seconds compared to South Carolina at 24-17. So you were right. Just unfortunately, that was Vanderbilt that did end up winning the time of possession in game.
Wait, so what was my score this week?
So
I don't think that was that bad, then.
You got the most right. You got 3, which now brings us, hold on, I gotta get my totals here. Brings us to you and I tied with the most for 8, and Chris has 5. So you close the gap.
So how many points did each of you get this week?
See, I got 1, Chris got 2, you got 3 for the week. So you won the week.
One of the few wins in Columbia this weekend.
Yeah, it's a hollow victory, all things considered, but Yeah,
Yeah,
still.
not a good weekend for Palmetto State football teams.
No, definitely not. Yeah, Clemson losing the Upstate. I didn't see what did Coastal do. We know what Coastal did.
I didn't see the score. I'm pretty sure they lost too.
Okay, yeah, tough weekend to be a Palmetto-based FBS program at least. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. Maybe discuss what Beamer's going to be talking about in a little over an hour as we wrap up the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Wes wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday on the game. Of course, Coach Beamer will speak today at 1 o'clock, which you can listen to during the halftime show as he gives his thoughts coming away from the loss against Vanderbilt and does start to turn his attention to Missouri coming up later on this week out in Como. But Wes, the most important question that I'm sure will be addressed right off the jump in his opening spiel before he starts taking questions is, where is LaNorris Sellers at health-wise? I don't know if we're going to get a definitive answer on will he or won't he play coming up this weekend, but just kind of knowing where the progress of that is. Concussions are obviously funny things that may not look severe but could keep you out for a couple weeks. And obviously the success of this team, especially going into a tough game like Missouri, is paramount, or is going to be indicative upon whether LaNorris Sellers plays or not.
I mean, Tyler, when you have a quarterback with the upside that LaNorris Sellers has, and that doesn't even take into account, in my opinion, all the things we talked about with the offense, the struggles, the ups, the downs, how well has Sellers played. Forget all that. When you have a guy with his ability, whether or not he plays in a game is going to, I don't know what Vegas would set in terms of like his impact on a line, but it honestly would completely change the way a lot of people would look at this football game in terms of, can South Carolina go out there and win the thing, honestly. So, yeah, I think, dude, this may be one of your more interesting Beamer press conferences we've had in quite some time.
Yep.
He was asked already a little bit on the teleconference on Sunday about some things, but you can imagine, obviously, to your point, we will get, we'll hopefully get some type of LaNorris update. It would definitely be asked, right?
Yep.
Does the Virginia Tech question get asked again? I don't know that there's much he can say there. I was reading right before we came on, actually during the commercial break here, the latest from Pete Nakos, who basically, if you're on Gamecock Central, which means you're on 3, and you're curious, Pete has a great in-depth update on Virginia Tech opening. He says, look, 2 sitting Power 4 head coaches, ironically, based on what we've been talking about this week, that Virginia Tech will reach out to are the 2 coaches that just beat them in 2 out of the first 3 games of the year. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt and Shane Beamer here at South Carolina. He basically says, let's see, leaving a good spot in the SEC for a rebuild in the ACC could be a tough sell, but the chances to bring the Hokies back to the spotlight could be unlikely, or could be attractive.
Sure.
But the odds, Steve. And does Beamer get asked about some interesting reporting that's out there about Shula and the offense and where things are there? I imagine some questions may come up there too, Tyler. So it could be a very, very interesting press conference coming up here on 107.5 at 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Or here on the game, I should say.
Yeah, here on the Game Network. Jack and I talked about, and Jack's obviously going to be there, so we can ask some of these questions. I was willing to bet that at least half the questions are going to be offensive based. Like, what you've seen, what happens going forward. Obviously, Sellers gets roped into that because that's the main concern of this team. I mean, the defense had its issues on Saturday night, but we're not sounding the alarm bells because they missed a few tackles, and obviously special teams has done what it's done so far this year. Kicking, obviously you've missed a couple kicks. That's not great, but the main issue of this team is offense, and we know this isn't 2008 anymore. You can't get by in the SEC scoring only 17 points a game. You got to do a whole lot better than that. And again, I understand Beamer sticking to his guns and defending his guys like Mike Shula, but it's a glaring issue early in the season. There's no doubt about it.
Well, and I do think, and we don't have much time, Tyler, I was thinking about this today. A lot of the reactions we see, I'm sure you see it with callers too, reactions we see online is basically, hey, why does Beamer say the same things in press conferences? And when people say that, I don't know necessarily what they want. Maybe they're out for blood. Maybe they want him to throw some people under the bus.
Sure.
What did I talk about earlier, though, man? As bad as some things have gotten at times during these seasons, Beamer has kept everybody, for the most part, pulling in the same direction. Part of that, honestly, is wearing it in the press conference, not throwing guys under the bus. Part of that is just taking ownership and saying, hey, we're going to put things we're going to handle things behind closed doors. I'm not going to handle it in a press conference. And guess what? To this point, it has worked. They have been able to finish season strong. They have not had a locker room give up like you have seen across the college football landscape at times. So my point being, Tyler, I don't see that changing in terms of Beamer's answers to questions.
Yeah, no, he's always been somebody that likes to handle things behind closed doors, and that's probably not going to change anytime soon. So, again, coming up at 1 o'clock, we hear from Beamer as he addresses things heading into week number 4 against Missouri, and we'll break down what he has to say coming up tomorrow. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. I'll be rolling the halftime show solo up until Beamer's press conference coming up next on your Tuesday on the Game.